get what I want if it's up to me. I'm standing on the broken head in between of what I want and what I need. Can't see the road ahead. I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know where I'm going yet. I never make up my mind and I can't take a joke. I only have an appetite after I've had a smoke. I fall asleep to hypnosis to reprogram my brain. I can't afford diagnosis, so I just stay the same. I don't know what I want, but it feels like it's out of reach. Don't know how to get what I want if it's up to me. I'm standing on the broken head in between of what I want and what I need. Can't see the road ahead. I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know where I'm going yet. Cold hands, cold feet, can't see. I don't know where I'm going yet. Want to believe. I don't know where I'm going yet. It's up to me, but I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know where I'm going yet. If I knew how to change it, don't you think I would? I'm so suspicious that I question what used to feel good. If I could be somebody else, shit, I wish I could. Yeah, I wish I could. Oh, I'm standing on the broken head in between what I want and what I need. Can't see the road ahead. I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know where I'm going yet.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Saturday. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be your on camera facilitator for this second week of 2026 weekly setup. But this is the first full week in January, which that took a little bit of like brain gymnastics, honestly, too early this morning to kind of sort out that in my head. But we are, yes, officially first full week of January, which is actually week two. But we are glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator, who you will see in the chat, Jen. We are the former Team Tech, as always, Team Texas, and we are glad to be here in this, again, still weird existence of like in between the holidays, not quite started going back to work-ish, but kind of, not really. I don't know. So even I had a hard time figuring out what day it is, what time it is. What are we doing here? But actually, we are here to set up our journal weekly pages. So I love seeing a lot of our returning socialers in the chat. Welcome. It is always great to see each and every one of you. But as always, you can participate in as much or as little of this social as you want. If you want to work with the larger Silk and Sonder fam in the chat, just double check that it is set to everyone. The default is hosts and panelists, and that gets shared just with Jen and I. And we are always happy to answer any questions or concerns there. Same thing with you can absolutely sit and work on your journal, or you can maybe just be here for the chat. Maybe I am too much. You can mute me, you can mute the music, you can do all of those amazing things because we are so glad that you are here and we are so glad to get started. So be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect to everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And as always, we will redirect most of your customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. If you have any questions or concerns, everything there, let us know. We can certainly flag it up to headquarters because I know there have been some kind of just weird technical gremlins living out there. So just let us know. And then, as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well being, and decisions. And I know the beginning of the new year, end of a previous year, that brings up all sorts of feelings and thoughts and emotions, some that you're either prepared for, some that sneak up. So I know it's also just one of those kind of weird spaces to exist in, kind of, sort of. I know I am there. So please just take a deep breath. There's no one that's going to look over your shoulder to see how much progress you're making on this, how much you aren't progress you're making. We are glad that you're here. But if you had a week, then you have now this opportunity to sit and decide, are you going to carry that week with you? Or are you going to kind of give it an opportunity to reflect, have its moments, sort out what you want to do going forward? And sometimes that can be with or without it. But it certainly is one of those. Definitely do not send yourself in a tailspin. Reframe some of these questions and ideas, because you shouldn't be walking away from this more upset than when you got here. So with that being said, we do have a new theme, and that is alignment. This one I thought was an interesting first year, first theme, all of those kind of amazing things, just because I really, really fell in love with renewal being the end of the year. Because I know a lot of people get like kind of a fresh start feeling, whereas like I feel like my January is just about as chaotic as my December sometimes. So it was one of those, it was an interesting thought for me because I do feel like I have maybe some alignment issues, but I think it's more of I find that I have to reframe kind of my expectations versus reality situation. So I'm trying to lean a little bit more into maybe more the mental and emotional alignment, which is why I came across these two quotes, which was stay aligned with your own energy and let people meet you there. I feel like we've spent some time kind of setting boundaries and some of those things, and I feel like even as I start to potentially transition back and forth into different communities, going back to different friend groups, that kind of thing, this kind of emerges a little bit because it always kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, well, I wonder why this is here. So I am working kind of on that, but also still leaving. I'm kind of at that point where it's like I don't really want to say no to things. So keeping, doors open, opportunities open, still embracing that idea of yes. And then the one on the right, the better you feel, the more in alignment you are. The worse you feel, the more out of alignment you are, which I feel like this is one of those like simple, oh yeah, duh. But I do think it's more of, I treat it as a little bit of a litmus test. And that is just because I feel like there are times where even I feel like I'm starting to kind of get in either a weird mood, weird space, weird place, all of those things. And I tend to be able to feel that before I can kind of pinpoint why. So I liked this idea of, do you have any of those type of cues that you can start thinking of that you can keep tracking on, where it's more of like, oh, I feel like I'm just not, things aren't firing on all cylinders. And I think it's sometimes as simple as like, I switch keyboards on my laptop, so my typing changes and you get all the really random typos and it can be a little frustrating. So it's more of the like, it just starts to show in different places that I've obviously switched keyboards. And so it's can we start to see some of those ideas early so we can catch some of the like small tweak alignments and having to set of like full blown like chiropractor realignment components. But as always, I would love to hear kind of your thoughts and feelings on this. Just kind of what you think of potentially about this with being a new theme, a new idea, all that. And so we'll be moving into the alignment mind map and then our rosebud thorn and then our weekly setup pages. And I see that we do have some new folks with us. Welcome. The mind map is something that is not actually printed in your journal. It is an opportunity to dive a little bit more into kind of a creative element of how you want to display your mind map. But it is a page that we're going to come back to on a weekly basis, specifically in the weekly setups. And it is a way for us to ask a couple different questions, look through a couple different lenses, I joke in the kind of different zooming in and zooming out components within the framework of the theme that we have. So we are going to always do usually 4 weeks. Whether there's multiple additional weeks, we will then have bonus mock questions, which is an opportunity. But you can absolutely set your page up for 4 different sections because we'll focus on 4 different weeks. A lot of people will go to the very last blank page in the journal just to have it there because it's easy to flip to, kind of those wonderful ideas there. I also have gone to like the first blank page, but don't worry, I will use my example. You'll see it in a couple slides. And as always, I will present all of this information. I will then go off camera, but if I need to go back to a different slide or if you have other questions, just put that in the chat and we will make it work. So, as we move into January, we're going to center ourselves around the powerful theme of alignment. And so, after the energy of the holidays, January is our chance to kind of pause and ensure that our habits, rituals, and daily routines truly serving the purpose we want to become in 2026. And so, we're going to now kind of embrace some of those ideas with our very first week, which is the core connection. And I do think you will see definitely kind of a little bit of an interchangeable use of alignment and connection because we do have quite a few themes. Connection was a theme probably last year or even the year before. And so we do start to get some of those like echoing there, which I think is always really great because a lot of times even I will have a theme and I'll ask myself a couple questions and they'll get put up on a shelf to just kind of hang out there and sort it out. But when I have those kind of themes that will go a little bit hand in hand, and it is an opportunity to revisit it. So, with the core connection idea, is when you look at your daily schedule, what 3 activities make you feel most like your true self? And which 3 feel like they are pulling you out of alignment? I had a little bit of a sassy take on this, not gonna lie, but the print on the one on the right is my example there. I broke it into the 4 different categories. But so obviously the first 2 are the questions there. But then, like I said, I got a little sassy with the 3 that are pulling me out of alignment because it's obviously work meetings, work emails. It becomes work related, which is like not the point because I cannot change those things to that extent. Because with me, honestly, the thing, 3 activities that make me feel most like my true self are the 3 things that I want to do every single day, which is move, read, and journal. That's exactly, it took me a while to get there, so I love the opportunity to celebrate that that's what it's doing. But then when it's the 3 things that are pulling you out of alignment, unfortunately, those were very driven with work. And I can't really control a lot of those things. I can't control people's responses. I can't control how meetings go. I can't control what attitudes people bring to meetings. So it was more of, okay, we're going to have to make an adjustment because I can't just get rid of those meetings. So it was then asking the question of how can you make adjustments to be more in line with your reality and your expectations? So that is kind of more where I started to lean on these mental and emotional ideas of what I can change in order to better align with just the attitude or the energy and time and effort that I'm going to put into these things that I can't quite control. And so that's where I asked the other question, do you need help with some of these or are these things that are out of your control? And so again, are these more of the actions or mental and emotional activities? And I found out it was a little less of the actions and more of my mental and emotional response to these actions. Because for example, I am one of those that I won't quite put things away right away, which I know is a bad habit. And I know that that becomes mentally and emotionally draining on me. I was telling Jen, I had to order some vitamins and some things from a place. So they're sitting on a table downstairs and I haven't moved them. And they've been sitting there a couple hours, even though I need to move them. So I feel like that becomes a little bit of an alignment issue because it's like, you need to move them. It's going to annoy you in 2 to 3 hours that those things are still there. So I think it's again making those adjustments for what you can control or how you can approach it, where it's like, if you're not going to move them, then you can't pout about it in like a couple hours when it's still there because you're the only one that's going to have to do it. So that was kind of the approach that I had was maybe I just need to zoom out a little bit. And the little like trivial example of like, well, I can't be fussed to move those 2 things yet, but I know in a couple hours it's going to drive me nuts. So I would love to hear your all's thoughts on kind of this idea of alignment also there, but also what can we and can't we control kind of in our day to day to help support that alignment idea. So I am going to stop talking. I am going to put on some music and we will see you soon. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate all of your just very thoughtful responses. And while I also see a little bit of a commonality with sometimes it's more of, less of the actions or the activities that we do and a little bit more on just kind of how we mentally and emotionally invest in those activities, which I always think is a really clever way for us to trick kind of our brains on how we approach these things. Because again, some of those activities we cannot ignore, we cannot not do. And those can be work, those can be chores, they can be all of those things. And so I think it's more of the realization that you do have some of the control over how much, again, time, energy, and effort you expend in it. And so I like that idea because those are those different things that you can actually change and take a little bit more of the control and ownership back. I think someone ages ago, I feel like one of these socials had the best advice of, not absorb or anything. Like I said, excuse yourself from some of the unimportant things. And I think sometimes that is just what I have to think and do when I like come into these for sure meetings. And I think that's just work has been a little bit frustrating recently. And I normally don't harp on it as much, but it was definitely one of those I had to take a little bit more extra effort, extra energy, just to even kind of sit through some of these meetings and control facial responses and all those things. So it's more of now I'm kind of seeing that alignment a little bit more of, well, if I can't change one thing, how can I bring this back so that it's not, taking up too much time, energy, and effort out of my day? And I realize that is absolutely something that I can control, and I love that idea. I definitely like the art of control when it comes to some of those things, but I always appreciate the ability to kind of pinpoint what can you control, what can't you control, those sphere of influences, which I think is really valuable, and I think that definitely ties in with the alignment theme. So. Thank you for sharing. So now we're going to stay still in our January journal, but we're going to be on page 30, which is our rosebud thorn reflection. And I use this quote occasionally, but I bring it back in kind of what I consider pointed things. And it's the how often do you celebrate your wins? How do you cheer yourself on? Because I do think one of the things, or at least one of the traps that I fall into as I'm looking back on a previous year and into a new year, I sort of get stuck on where I fell short. What goals did I not reach? What routines did I, kind of fall off? And then especially as we pivot into what routines I need to pick back up. So I wanted to take that moment of, I want to focus a little bit more on celebrating the wins in that regard. So I'm actually going to go back to that for my weekly setup pages, which we'll talk about in the future pages when we get there. But the rosebud thorn is an opportunity to see those highs, the lows, and everything in between, and make that intentional effort to decide how you want to carry forward these things that happened the past week. And so for the rose, that can be the highlight, something that made you happy, made you smile, was a good thing, positive thing, of those things. I actually had friends over for New Year's Eve. I live in close proximity to the Edinburgh Castle, so we were able to have fun here, and then walk less than 5 minutes over to see the fireworks, which was always fun. Really enjoyed it. But what I liked, it's some of my very close friends that are here, but they also brought some of their family. So it was definitely like a larger celebration, which I always thoroughly enjoy. I also feel like I behave a little bit better when you have other people in the room. So that was probably well sorted. So I appreciated that. The emerging opportunity is your bud, something that you're looking forward to, something that is exciting, something that is out on the horizon that you haven't quite sorted out what it is yet. And I probably have a lot more bigger things that I would say are certainly worthwhile in looking to. But the one that I came to right away was the New Year book challenge, reading challenge. I hit my goal for last year for that regard. I am bookworm. I'm already excited about kind of chipping away at that new one routine. And I know that again sounds so simple, but as I said, what brings me in alignment is reading. So I love this idea of now I get to do a new challenge kind of in that regard and track all of those things because I do find it really magical about what potential books can bring for this year. And then the thorn. And this is the challenge, something that is negative, something that is not the bright spot. But I've also kind of altered it a little bit because I don't want to dwell too much on negative things because I feel like I get absolutely fixated on it and I will absolutely dwell on the negative. I have now pivoted this a little bit into what is taking up too much time, energy, and effort in my mind, my body, or my soul. And so that is where I'm kind of pivoted with it, where it's just like, what is taking too much energy? Where can I put that energy elsewhere? Again, lows are going to happen. That is how life exists. It's the wonderful roller coaster that we are on. So instead of, again, calling it this particular thing, it's how can we reframe it so that it doesn't get a bigger platform. And as I mentioned, I'm struggling with like what day it is, what time it is, what are my responsibilities, who am I responsible for in that capacity. So daily routines. And that's everything as simple as, like I said, putting stuff away, even getting out like other things. I still even have like the random party food that I'm trying to like chip away at. So it's those things that it's like I'm just not quite in my routine yet. And come Monday, I'm gonna need to be because that's when work starts. So to me, that's my challenge for the week. So as always, if you want to share in the chat, we would love to see your rosebud thorns. But again, we are on page 30 in your January journal, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I really get a lot of satisfaction with this particular prompt and this particular reflection activity, which I know seems very small and very trivial, but at the same time, I'm one of those that I definitely hold on to a lot of things. I jokingly carry my stress on my shoulders, as my acupuncturist would say. But I have found that this is one of those like perfect exercises to just write something down, give it a moment, and put it out into the universe. So it may not be something that I share all the time. It may not be something that I share with everybody. I do this multiple times as well because, again, one of my other favorite quotes is there are definitely chapters that you don't read aloud. So I do this often. And I think it's one of those I find it really helpful, really powerful. And just again, that very simple element of I have given it a moment and I have pushed it away and I've done something with it, decided what to do without it, and then I'm able to kind of pick up and move on. And or pivot with the particular idea of how I want to structure my week around those ideas. But I genuinely enjoy this particular exercise more and more as it becomes again more of that routine requirement. So, with that being said, we are now going to move into those weekly setup pages, which, as Jen hopefully put in the chat, page 32 and 33 in your January journal. So, again, this is week two, which is wild to get to say those all over again. And so, we're going to start on those pages. And the way I always like to frame these weekly setups, if you've come to me before, I do think at this point, you all know my rehearsal script just about as well as I do, because I always recommend asking yourself, what do you need this week? What do you need from this week? Because we know this week's look very different than last week. This week is going to look very different than next week. It's going to look very different than a week in August, a very different day in a week in April, and all of those things. So I always kind of sit with my thoughts to think about what do I need this week? Because sometimes what I need for this week is the pages exactly as written in their own little individual squares, and I'm going to answer each of those questions individually. And then there are other times where I need some extra help and extra support, and that is where I'm going to kind of connect them all together to provide a little bit more oomph and power to kind of what I want to accomplish. And then there are times where I don't want to do anything on this particular page. I want to change everything and I want to reframe, reapproach. I just want to do everything differently because, in my mind, if it didn't work last week, then we got to do completely revamp it and then kind of come back and forth. I like to overcorrect sometimes when I'm in one of those moods, and that's perfectly fine. And then sometimes what you need is a break from some of these sections. And I do think I have taken a little bit too much of a break on the habits and activities. So that's going to be kind of a foundational thing that I'm certainly going to go into. And I'll explain why. But this is your permission to kind of do what you need for the week ahead. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There is no right or wrong way to set this up. And there's also no right or wrong way to approach this if come Wednesday you wake up and you realize you're a completely different person from where you were today and realize none of this is going to help. So you can absolutely rewrite it. You can tear out some of these pages, but at the end of the day, this should just be another stepping stone, not necessarily a preventative thing. So I start at the top with this week I want to feel. And this is my opportunity to take control of my week as I'm experiencing the rose, the buds, and the thorns of the week, the highs and lows and everything in between. If I come up with how I want to feel this time next week, this is my ability to bring myself back to alignment. But I do love the joys that aren't so tiny because a lot of things I did this week and I do feel better. I just did the laundry. I did take those really long showers. Like I said, had friends over, and that always gets the biggest laugh. I did have some random people kind of check in to see how I was doing, and then same thing with I'm not a coffee drinker, so that one didn't happen. But the song that you forgot you loved, I have dove down into all of the old school playlists that just make me happy. So in that one, it's more of for me this week, I want to feel a little bit more grounded because I feel like I've just been floating all over the place through the holidays, which has been lovely and wonderful, and I enjoyed it. But now I got to buckle back down. So maybe you want to feel a particular word, a particular phrase. Maybe you are leaning into your word of the year for 2026. Maybe you want to do less of something, more of something. Maybe it's a percent of. Maybe this is where those sticker lives. As we know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So maybe this is where you come back down to, come to these ideas, or maybe it's those gentle reminders again as you are coming down from the emotional and physical toll that the holidays will do. I know my family back in Oklahoma, a lot of them are sick, which hashtag, I feel like that's a classic holiday tradition. So it is kind of still being a little bit gentle in those type of ideas there, or even just reminiscing. So I am going to stop talking, but if you would like to share how you want to feel this time next week or how you want to feel this week, this is where we will start on the top of page 32, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And do please continue to share even the previous responses as we move through the different sections, just because I do have a set time limit. But like you said, I feel like there's something really special and really powerful of being able to put all of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions out into the world in our wonderful little community where it can be kind of unjudged and all those things. So it always feels a little bit better. But appreciate a little bit on the inside of some of your all's words of the year. I am one of those that I haven't quite come up with it yet, and it'll probably take me a little bit. And I'm usually not super committal to like one specific word. I'm a word bank girly. And same thing with I try to kind of decide and sort out those things, but I haven't quite put a stamp on it quite yet, but I will tend to keep you all posted. But I love hearing about how you all are starting this new year. So now we're still going to stay on page 32, but we're going to combine those weekly major three goals and the weekly to-dos because I like to have these support how I want to feel this time next week. And so my major three goals are the mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself in order to feel the way I want to feel this time next week on top of the to-do list. And so these can certainly be categorized with the mind, body, soul. I like the alliterations. I have found that as I'm dealing with the seasonal kind of disorder, it makes you a little sad. All of those things, I have found that leaning into the alliterations is also a good way to trick your mind into getting excited and embracing it a bit more. So I know Kimberly L, I think she is in the chat. I think hers is the top left one with the revisit, restore, and relax. I thought that was, again, a really lovely alliteration as well, moving into that. So maybe it is just the three things that you want to do. Maybe it is the three big things that you need to accomplish. Maybe it is more of you, again, trying to build that routine, get back into the routine. So maybe it is a early goal, a midday goal, and an evening goal that all need to be accomplished each day. Maybe it is tying those to-dos directly into your categorized goals. Again, another alliteration I do like. It's become really entertaining at that point with the create, consume, cavort, and commune. So that is a you goal, another goal, a move goal, and a social goal, which I think is really great, especially as you start moving into that. And then same thing with the frog, the fun, the fierce, another wonderful alliteration. But maybe you're also not quite ready to set up those goals quite yet because you're kind of sorting through some of those things, and maybe you are wanting to tie it a little bit more into kind of your overall 2026 goal, or maybe you're going to be joining Mayha at the 2026 exclusive event that's coming up on the 15th to kind of set some of those things there. So maybe these are, this is a to be determined section. And yes, Nicole is at the top left with those affirmations to kind of do all those things. But again, just because it it's asking for three major three goals, these could be two major goals, two minor goals. This could be one goal. This could be one of those things. So maybe this is the section that you potentially need a break from. And then we move into those weekly to-dos. And like I said, my snarky sharks are going to be back. So the to-dos can absolutely go hand in hand with those weekly major three goals. For me, they usually don't. The weekly major three goals for me are those mental and emotional reminders where the to-dos are the things that I absolutely need to get done. I am feeling a little bit better on the seasonality component, so I'm going to try not to kind of baby myself a little bit more in that regard. So I think I'm going to lean a little bit more into that Eisenhower matrix, which is the do, decide, delegate, or delete. But as always, I do not delete anything. I merely delay it. But I need to kind of shorten that particular list, especially as I go into the start of the year because I've got classwork that I need to get organized. But it was even the like little things, like one of my top goal for sure to get done out of this is certainly organize like I need to update my schedules. I need to officially move into my kind of 2026 calendars, putting in, birthdays, upcoming dates. I've got friends that are coming to visit. So it's those things like I really just need to buckle down on those small steps. So that's kind of where my to-do list is focused at that point. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then, but maybe it's a need and a want list, a reprioritization idea. Maybe it is just organizing into the calls, the errands, the follow-up, the schedule, the put away, the cleaning, the decluttering. Maybe it is versus your work goals versus your personal to-dos that are on that need and want component. Or even as I've mentioned, I really was being quite harsh on myself the last couple weeks as we were kind of culminating the end of the year. So I want to celebrate my wins a little bit more. So I'm bringing back the homework that I had with my therapist ages ago, and that was to write down something on that one good thing, top of the page. I'm going to write down one thing that I did well that day, just to kind of come back and focus that. So I am going to stop talking. I would love to hear what goals and to-dos you're working on, especially as we transition back into those routines. Like I said, I'm always open for advice, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Now we are going to still stay on page 32, but we're going to that bottom page with the bottom part of the page with the habits and activities. And I do think this one really certainly leans into the mind map, as Jen just pointed out, with the question of the three things that kind of bring you into alignment versus the three things that don't. As I said, I am a creature of habit. My monthly habit tracker has the same three things at the top, which is move, read, and journal. But then I overlay the lens of reality so that my reality and my expectations and my perception all are in agreement, because I want to do those three things every single day. I have to do those three things every single day because it makes me happier. It's that way that I re-energize in how I approach just the day-to-day stuff. And so I include, what kind of workload I have, what the weather is going to be like. We had a little bit of a cold front here, so again, a lot of those things are not going to happen outside as much as they do. And then I did like this idea of maybe this year I'll let myself be bad at delightful new things because I do feel like you go through that kind of trying or the limitation of trying something new because you overthink it and you don't think you're as good at it. And I really enjoyed some of the social events that I did last year where I was like, this is not my style. Even to the point, a very good friend of mine said, you know, she was like, I know a lot of Katie's. She's like, you're the least craftiest Katie that she knew. And I said, yeah, that's not my thing. So it made me chuckle where it's like, I've tried it, and at least I have done enough arts and crafts around her that she can confidently say, I am the least artsy of the Katies. So I appreciated that I tried it and also acknowledged that art was not my subject, nor is it still my subject. But I love the idea again of leaning into this idea of what are the five things that you want to do this week. And you can either set a goal to it or you can set a no goal to it. This is how we start building potentially some of those foundational routines again. Or maybe this is the section that you need a little bit of a break from because you haven't quite sorted out what you want to do, how you want to decide. And then just because there are 5 lines listed does not mean you need to use all 5. Maybe it is just kind of the top couple things. Maybe it's leaning a little bit more into the mental and emotional activities that you want to do. Maybe it's more of the reflection. Maybe it's a vision board. Maybe it's more those ideas instead of the actual kind of activity type things. And same thing with we have a great template for it, just in the sense of your weekdays may look a little bit different than your weekend, which adds again to making sure those alignment happen between expectations and reality. And then again, you guys know what's next, the iconography. But oh my goodness, I have to give a social media shout out to @SilkenSonder because look at these beautiful little things. One, it's the iconography of how to cut out some of these. And then the other one is again like an adventure list, bucket list, bingo type thing, where I usually get some of my inspiration from. And so these are different journal prompts, different ideas, but I was so impressed and it made me so happy. But now we gotta have them fully lean into the adventure and bucket list inspiration ideas. But um, I was pretty excited, and I feel like even Jen and I were kind of doing like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, with like, look at what has transpired, and we love it. And same thing with again the ideas how to make the most of winter, and then again some of these how you're going to choose yourself in 2026 with some more of those adorable doodles because I'm not quite ready to give up the holidays yet. My tree's going to be out a little bit longer, and it makes me happy, but. I am going to stop talking and I am going to let you work on this, but I would love to hear what habits and activities you're working on at the bottom of page 32, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Love seeing all the new focus ideas, all the points that are there. So now we're going to switch over to page 33, which I lovingly refer to as the B side, because when it comes down to usually the question of what do I need this week, usually I do not need this page. There are definitely specific instances that I use it for, and that has just taken me quite a bit of time to adjust to get to that. But maybe this is what you need. So you can use the meal plan exactly as written, and exactly what you want to do. Maybe you use it as more of a real-time tracker, because you're on a healthcare journey or you're on some symptom check. Maybe this is where your doodles live, the sticker lives. Maybe this is where you include those weekly wins, the daily wins. Maybe it's more the meal plan for the soul, where your daily rituals or reflections, or even those daily affirmations from the Silk and Sonder app are. I definitely use this for packing and wardrobe planner. I don't have any trips coming up, so like I said, I'm not really particularly going to be using this page, but this is where you can lean into some of that creativity. Maybe the mind body health plan is another one of those that you track more in real time, or it is something that you plan for. Leaning into the alliterations, like I said, a great way to trick your brain into getting excited about something that it won't normally be excited about. I love, again, the elegant simplicity of the I feel and I need, because I have asked myself that on a pretty regular basis. And what I have found is, so I work up, I have a pretty high ceiling that is floor to ceiling, and then I've got like a mezzanine. And so it gets really hot up here. And I have found that I start to get a little bit frazzled and anxious when I get a little too hot up here. So I will walk downstairs, cool down a little bit, and come back a little bit more rest and refreshed. And that was kind of a conclusion that I came to with the I feel and I need. Maybe it's leaning into some of the moments that you get excited about for in January. Maybe this is the 7 types of rest, or even as you start moving through the decluttering component, maybe this is where you track some of that. Um, I like the other things to smile about, as well as advice from a snowman. Don't worry, I will come back to that. But I do think it is a genuinely a great way to exist in the winter months, especially with the avoiding the meltdowns. And then you have the shopping list that can go hand in hand with the meal plan and the meal tracker there. But this is also where a lot of folks will put their bingo boards, because we do love a good bingo board, a good, fun gamification of the things. And it can be everything from the boring stuff being bingo to just for fun, the hobbies, the social check-ins. Maybe it is just a self-care bingo. Maybe it's a glimmer bingo. Glimmer are those things that kind of are the opposite of triggers, something that makes you smile, makes you happy, makes you get excited. Same thing with the quotes, or even just a fun little way to celebrate. So I am going to stop talking. I'm going to go back through these slides, and we will see you for one final check-in before the end of the social. See you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Yeah, who knew a hip hop violinist existed and he's super fun. And so I feel like in true millennial fashion, I had to do a little shout out for that song. But can you believe it? We have reached the end. That very last section on page 33 is the I am loving. And it is your opportunity to embrace whatever is making you happy, making you smile. What is that glimmer for the week and that type of thing? And really, it's been a lot of these sassy things where it's like, I've embraced the if I'm going to overthink something, at least I'm going to overthink on the good things. But as always, we would love to hear what you are currently loving in the chat if you would like to do so. And as well as we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You guys provide such amazing inspiration through the pages that you submit. Not only that, but all of the other ones there. So I appreciate anyone and everyone that takes the time to post there just because you have such amazing inspiration that we can then share with everybody here. And then we have announced our exclusive coming up January 15th. This one does have a fee. And I know there were some issues with the links, but headquarters has sorted that out. But if you want to join Mayha for the new year, Real You, your 2026 Glow Up, you can definitely join it live in person. And if you are unavailable to do it in person, you will get a copy of the recording. Speaking of recordings, all of our socials are recorded. Jen will include those in the YouTube app. If you want to catch up with one, hear a different facilitator's perspective, as well as just other fun examples and ideas. And as always, here is a copy of my playlist. I will include a link to the Spotify playlist in the chat. But can you believe it? We have reached the end. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. You guys are going to have an amazing rest of your weekend. And I cannot wait to kickstart the first official week of January with each and every one of you as we start to build a little bit more alignment with the year ahead. So we hope to see you at a future event really soon. Bye.
The highway was teasing me with promises and visions of a country unseen in a black limousine. For the better part of my 20s on the corner of this dirty street, a decade in the making, just a loser on two tender feet, singing.